Alice Ihori loves baseball, her swimming workouts, lots of travel, and the annual Seniors Fair.
And this is the 15th annual Seniors Fair.
Fun and entertainment.
And don't forget your Seniors Fair flu shot. To be an active senior, you need to stay a healthy senior.
The 15th annual Hawaii Seniors Fair.
Catch up with old friends and make new ones.
Thank you very much. We have Auntie Alice with us today, Alice Ihori, who is the ambassador of the Senior Fair. Kind of exciting, though. I know you're looking forward to it. What kinds of things can we look forward to with the fair?
Well, all the senior clubs have, the senior citizen clubs all have lots of arts and crafts to sell to. And then you have a lot of health organizations, plus travel organizations that you can. I love to travel.
You love to travel. You love to do a lot of things.
I do.
Over at the swimming club, I know you're there at the Honolulu Club. I know she goes to all the Rainbow Bowl games. You've been going to those for years and so forth.
For years.
But you've been active for years and years and years. I know, when I said, are you over 50, she said by a quarter of a century, right?
More than a quarter of a century.
More than a quarter of a century. Auntie Alice, we talked about the fair earlier, but now we want to talk. She grew up around here. The name of our building is 1 Archer Lane, and she grew up on Archer Lane.
I was born in 792 Archer Lane, which is at the end of this lane.
Things have changed quite a bit. What do you remember about the neighborhood?
Oh, there was a huge tree. T.O.H. Davies owned this property here. And they had the garage on the other side of Archer Lane. And there was a huge mango tree on this side, and the lot was paved. And we used to, when the cars go out in the morning, of course, then we have, all day to play around on that piece of property until the cars get back in the evening. And then, of course, there was only the streetcar running out here on King Street. And so we could cross the street anytime we wanted to go to Thomas Square and play.
You've been so active. She swims over at the Honolulu Club. She goes to the Rainbow baseball games. I guess you've been going there for years and years. She's been on the boards of all kinds of things around town, and now the ambassador for the Senior Fair. What kind of advice have you got for folks who are, let's say, old, like you are, over 50?
No. I would say get out and do things. Just get out, do something. Don't stay home.
I said, can Auntie Alice come down at 5 o'clock in the morning?
I don't do mornings.
Me either, but sometimes you got to, right?
To, yes. Well, I did that way before when I was going to McKinley. My father was a bread peddler in those days.
You're kidding. All right. Well, we're going I have to go now to a commercial, but I'm going to take your line. I don't do mornings.
No, I don't do mornings.
The whole staff is agreeing with you. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us today, and good luck on the Senior Fair.
Thank you very much.
We get you back to where you want to be. Ask your doctor about rehab at Rehab.
In 2007, First Hawaiian Bank donated $3.5 million to over 350 local charities, helping them do what they do better.
In this place that I love.
We have a designer who is 9 years old, and we have a designer who's 88 years old. Work it, Auntie. Our second youngest to Alice Ihori. It's supposed to be oldest, but I don't want to make her mad at me. So she's the second youngest. Very young. Yes, very young at heart.
I had 4 sisters and 4 brothers, but 2 different mothers, so we had 2 half-brothers. I moved to Japan because my mother died in childbirth. Okay. So I was 8 years old. Then my father remarried when I was 10, so we brought back to Hawaii. So my dear stepmother had 6 kids dumped on her as soon as she got married. She was such a nice lady, though. And Daddy would call Mama honey, and we all laughed because he called her honey. But then he said, her name was Mitsu. Mitsu is honey in Japanese. Depends on how you write, the character you write. So he says, her name is Honey, why shouldn't I call her Honey? You see, my father was very smart and very likable person. So my stepmother even, she ran away from, actually she was married. She ran away from him. She was only 15, married to a guy that, in the old days plantation, they were old men. They were married to younger brides from Japan and stuff. She was born in Kohala. Worse yet, they didn't have any girls around in Kohala, Hawi. So she was made to get married as soon as she had her first menstrual period, and which is pretty young, right? So every time she'd have a fight, she'd come running home, they send her back, she has another baby, she comes back, she has another baby. So she ran away. I don't know how she was bold enough to run away. So anyway, so she ran away. The man took home the children to Japan. She had one daughter, but the daughter had died while she was in Japan. And the rest were boys, there were 3 boys. Oh, my father brought them back, because he didn't think that they should be there. So he had my mother go and get them, brought them back here. Since they were older, they couldn't speak English, and they worked in my uncle's bakery, which made it worse because there were only Japanese-speaking kind of older people there. So they wanted to go back to Japan. I lived in what's called Alapai, where the cemetery is. Actually, it's a Catholic cemetery.
Oh, that's right.
And so some of the old names are there. And there was a streetcar line right in the center of King Street, so it went up and down. And there were a few cars. I was born in 1920. So there weren't that many cars around, but that we could cross the street anytime we wanted to. As long as we would watch for the streetcar, the rest was easy. And so we used to go across to Thomas Square to play. And then, we used to walk down Ward Street. Ward Street was the Ward family owned the whole place where the HIC is now. So that's what we used to do, and walk all the way down to Kewalo Basin, and that's where we used to swim at Kewalo Basin. And used to have the limu, the seaweed that we could pick. When it was high tide, then we would pick them with our toes. We can do this and catch up. This is how limu grows, right? So we just catch it, and it was too high, then we'll have to dive for it or whatever. But we usually educated toes that we could pick them up with them.
That was just more fun?
It was more fun that way. But then you have to remember to put back the stone, the coral that it's on, so that it'll keep growing. Yeah. But if you take it out entirely, then you won't have the next batch because it'll all dry out and die. So you have to be very careful what you do with your environment, right? We watched them build the ships, and one of my brothers-in-law was a shipbuilder. He did all the carpentry inside the sampans. They call the ships sampans. And he did all the cabinets and everything.
Wow.
But after my father remarried and we moved to, we came back from Japan,
Yeah.
then we moved to Kapahulu, Francis Street. Yeah, so and they had these 2 houses here, plus 2 houses on Francis Street. But the Japanese style, you give your houses to your boys, girls don't inherit anything. Remember that. So we had to buy our own homes. Well, luckily, all us girls, we were, savvy enough to buy our own homes. Because my father says, now my father's a very wise man, right? You know that. He says, Hawaii is not going to get any bigger. The thing to do is to buy real estate. So we all bought real estate. When we could afford, we bought a house. I lived on the street since '46. And I bought this house in 52.
Oh, great.
So I've lived on the street a long time. I didn't have much schooling to say. But anyway, well, I went to Japan when I was 8 years old and came back when I was 10, right? Didn't know a word of English. I didn't know what please or goodbye meant, okay? Only 2 years. And we had 6 of us, and how come we didn't talk to each other? I can't understand it. Because my older sister was 5 years older than I. So she should have been able to speak English, right? But when she came back, she couldn't speak English at all. She never could learn to speak English again. She just passed with Japanese. She died when she was only 26, which was because she could sew and she could do, other things. So I had to learn to sew because the dressmaker died. So instead of going to work after high school, I had to go to sewing school to learn. So it was a case of hurry up and learn because there were, girls. Boys, they had to have aloha shirts made, so I had to learn. The only thing I didn't have to do was be in the kitchen because there were other girls. They didn't know how to sew, so they stayed in the kitchen. You go back to the bedroom and start sewing. I worked as a maid in the homes, but I worked at the teacher's home and stuff that she would do the cooking. I only did the serving and washing the dishes. She'll take me to school in the morning, and if she's coming home right away, then I'll stay and come home with her. But I still was 19 when I graduated from high school. So with all the siblings younger than I didn't go to college. But the war has started, and they didn't have kids going to college because they were all in the service. So they even called me to say, would you come to school? They'll finance me. But I still couldn't go because all the other younger ones, somebody had to go to work. Oh, I went to work at Crest, the 5 and dime. Then the war came and there was nothing to sell. So they put us on furlough. And when the shipload came in, we'd go back to work. And then when the war started really getting bad, but goods started coming in, then the PX needed people to work. My mother says, you're going to work in the post with all these howless soldiers? No, I don't think so. But I went. Well, you see, at the beginning of the war, there were all the real eligible guys, right? 19 and older. But as the war advanced, the personnel got less and less, then they had to get in the older guys. They were in their 30s and 40s. Then when it got more than that, then we had to get kids that are 18, 19 years old. And they went to Tarawa, the Philippines, all of that, the Coral Sea, Midway, all that. Some of them never came back, right? That's kind of hard to take. We weren't supposed to have any written books or talk Japanese or anything. Luckily, they didn't take my father because my father used to be the president of the social club and everything. And, but they didn't take my father because they figured he was only socially active.
Right, good.
But my brothers, my stepbrother and his cousin, they were interrogated. And so that was kind of hard. But then they became the interrogators, yeah.
They were released.
No, they weren't taken away anywhere, so that was okay. And my father wasn't taken away. You haven't lived through a blackout, have you? Any of you? No. can't go out at night, and all the headlights are painted blues. There won't be any lights showing. But it really wasn't too bad. Only the families that were relocated because of the parents doing some other kind of work, or if they were Buddhist priests or Japanese school teachers, they were taken to Honolulu or to the mainland. But the rest of us, we were just more socially together with the old country, that we weren't suspicious at all. So we went on our way the same, only food was kind of scarce to get. But my mother wasn't working at that time, so she stood in line to get everything, including clothing and everything else that you had to have. She stood in line at the Metropolitan Meat Market and all the various stores. And then we would go and buy soup bone with 5 cents worth of vegetables to go in the soup. Those were the days when you could have a big meal with one soup bone and vegetables. My mother was a good cook, as I may have said before. She could do anything. They had a hard time getting people to work at the schools and things, so my brothers came home one day and said, "Mama, why don't you go to work at the school cafeteria? They're looking for people." And my mother was a good cook, so she, oh, well, maybe she should, because the kids were getting older. They could, just go to school and come home by themselves. So she tried out, and they took her, and so she worked there for a number of years, and she retired from the school system, actually. The dock workers just go on strike, okay? And when that finishes, then the Honolulu Wharf guys would strike. So it'll come to a point where maybe for a whole month, everything is tied up. Some parts of the labor force was on strike, and we couldn't get anything in or out. My mother was very good. She did all our buying, all our clothes, everything. The only thing she couldn't buy for us was our shoes, so we had to go. When she was buying shoes, we had to go with her. Women's slacks were starting to be in fashion because they worked in the shipping, and they couldn't wear dresses to work in, like Rosie the Riveter type things. So then they came out with women's slacks. Well, Mama went down to town one day, and she came back with 4 pairs of slacks. 4 of us were old enough. My youngest sister was too young to wear, so we had 4. Daddy says, "Oh, he's got 4 boys now." Oh, we all went to Hanauma Bay. Well, that was really nice, and it's sort of sheltered. We had to walk a lot to get in there because the bus didn't go all the way in either. So, but we had lots of fun doing that. Then we'd even go moonlight picnics. My first date, I was such a good girl. Dates were nothing. We're always chaperoned. My kid brothers, that's a funny one, because it all depended on who my date was, which brother liked which boy. So who would chaperone me was up to who I was dating. Well, we usually went to the movies. Waikiki Theater was new yet at the time, so we usually went to, and then from Waikiki we'll walk home to Kapahulu. No, we didn't make out at all, no. I would go, or later on when, I guess the wall was still on. But these friends of mine had a band, so they would play at the YMCA or whatever, and they'll take all the instruments home, and then we'd go out on the town after that. So by the time it'd be late, right? Because dances lasted until about 11 o'clock, and then from then we'd go out to eat and things. So for a while, that's the kind of stuff we did, but nothing much, because some of the boys were being called up. Yeah, when you get together, you say, "Oh, Gilbert was called," and all that sort of stuff. So it was every time somebody else is missing, and we have a new band man and that type of stuff. So I guess I did lead a kind of a rascal life, even if I didn't get into trouble. My father got excited when I wasn't married by 25. So then he thought, well, I should get married. And then his sister lived across the street from my mom's folks. And the sister saw me and she thought I'd be good for her brother. I didn't have anything easy. I had a hard time conceiving. I had a hard time through pregnancy, hard time after pregnancy. So when they get mad, when I get mad at them, do you realize that I had 2 years of sickness just to have one of you? And there's 6 years of illness to have all 3? And June wants me to tell the story about, I had 2 boys, and we wanted girl, and when I was pregnant with Joan, the doctor says, whether you have a boy or a girl, it's not going to make any difference. This is the last child you're having. Because it's too risky. He didn't want the mother to die like my birth mother, or I to die giving birth. So he says, this is the last child you're going to have. And so she was born at dawn. I almost named her Dawn, but anyway. And the doctor came in after he delivered her, and then he said, congratulations, you got your girl. I ironed for people, I sewed for people. I paid the mortgage with my earning. I worked for 27 years for one CPA. I'm a bookkeeper. So I'm supposed to be very quiet, very timid. I used to be. And then I got to a point where I was doing all the talking. So now I talk.
Okay.
And you can't shut me up. Parents told us to travel as much as you can. Then when you're in the hospital, all by yourself, then you can think of all the places you've been to. Oh, I got into the eclipse because of Joan. But we had the eclipse here in '91, in Hilo, in the Big Island. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there with you.
Yeah. Oh yes. And you danced the green rose hula.
To make the clouds go away.
Yeah, she was afraid the cloud was gonna hide the eclipse, so she started dancing the green rose hula.
Like that. I know.
And all the animals came up to us and they just stayed there. Donkey and what else did Kelly and, yeah. They had all kinds of animals and they all came up and it was kind of dark, but it's not a strange, it was a really strange darkness. I always call it a negative, film negative darkness. It's not solid black, you know, it's that thing that you can see, but it's still dark, yeah. Oh, Australia is so far, one city is so far from the other that You can't get on a car and drive through. You have to get the plane. I came home with 13 boarding passes.
You went all over.
13, yeah, we went all over. We rode on those, maybe only 15 passenger or even smaller than that. So our tour wasn't that big, but we had to go in 2 planes because they're such small planes, just in a puddle jumpers or whatever you call them. So that was fun too. Last one was to Turkey. We went to Greece and Turkey. Turkey was the eclipse. And Turkey is such a nice place. I always want to go back again. A lot of people go there, but they don't go to Cappadocia. They don't see the cave housing. That's what I liked. The hotel was in one of the caves. Yeah. And my sister and I, we went to Russia and the 5 Baltic states. But Russia is very, very, very nice.
Was that before?
This is one of those Russian dolls. In Japan, they used to have those dolls that, and that's what these Russian dolls were like that too. So that was good. We got to see places that I hadn't been to too. So.
You got to see family?
Yeah, we got to see all the cousins. And it was really nice. This was a chance for my family to travel together and everything else. He went on a baseball road trip with me when he was only 12.
Great.
When we're in Kansas or something, he says, "Oh, Grandma, wouldn't it be great if I can go home with you, and then we can go to the Northwest, without him going home between here and there." So I said, "That's an idea." So he called his parents, and then they called us back the next day at the next station, and then okay, so when we reached LA, she had another duffel bag with clean clothes. I've been to a baseball road trip to go to the Northeast, Midwest, and the Pacific. You should see some of those people up there and stuff like that. I met them on the plane, and I get to correspond with them for years and years. And I like plants. I mean, I plant anything I can get hold of, and so I don't have any more room to do anything. I like to give people what I make. I make those kitchen towels. I have a whole bunch of specialists that keep me healthy. This is from my hematologist. And so this was a blanket given by the pharmaceutical company. And I was there in his examining room, just cold. And so the front office people said, "Oh, where's the blanket?" So I wore the blanket, and the doctor came and said, "Oh, you look so pretty in pink." And I said, "Can I have it?" He said, "Oh, sure." So I brought it home. Next month when I went, I had this jacket made. He said, "You made it out of the blanket?" I said, "Yes, sir." So he was so proud of it that all his other patients, he said, "I got a star, she actually does commercials." And the doctor says, "Don't go out to eat because the kidney problem." Says, "Don't go out to eat." I said, "No, we don't go out to eat. We just take out." So every time anybody comes around, he says, "Oh, this is my TV star." And one day I was on the examining table sitting down, and he came in and he started singing, "Nobody knows the trouble I've seen." So I started singing with him. He perched himself on the examining table, and he kept on singing. And all the people, looking to see what was going on. So he's so funny. He says, how come you don't talk like an old person? I said, what do you mean? He said, I asked you a question and bam, you're right there with an answer. You don't ham and haw or talk like an older person, you know, this and that and all that sort of stuff. And then after we're talking some more about my ailments and stuff, and then he said, and where do you meet all these young people? I said, at the Honolulu Club. And they're all 10, 15, 20 years younger than I am. And they all say, oh, I want to be like you, Alice, you know, I want to, you're 85 and you're still doing all of this exercise. I want to be like, you're our model. Everyone say, you're a model. Oh. So when I joined the Honolulu Club, I came back full circle, came right back where I was born. me the way to go home. I'm tired and want to go to bed.